So today's topic, as you guys know, is registered as AI and RPA. What is the difference and what is next? The reality hasn't been amazing so far. And in many cases, RPA was able to only help with the easiest parts of a worker's job, so that it was lower hanging fruits of highly structured data that was dealt with. However, traditional rule-based automation often couldn't do much without some analog help. It still needed assistance when dealing with the variants and exceptions found in data. So this session today will demystify RPA, what it can do, and what the difference between RPA and other forms of AI are. Today, we have with us, up on top of the screen, we have Kevin Kwa, who's the head of technical sales at Tiger. Hi, Kevin.
Hi.
So he heads the sales organization, and he also functions as an in-house legal. And we have Thomas Yip, who's the head of sales at Tiger, who
Hello.
the business development organization and digital transformation consultation in Tiger. Welcome, guys. Welcome, gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining us all the way from Singapore.
Thank you.
So just a little bit about Tiger. They engineer advanced AI products that understand unstructured information in order to automate tasks and simplify processes, obviously reducing costs, on boosting performance, improving compliance, and enhancing customer experience. Welcome, guys. Welcome. I'll leave it to you, Thomas, to kick off.
Sure. Okay, so let me just transfer the screen to the slides. Okay, I just realized it's still 3 p.m. at your side, because over here it's all dark and it's already at 8 p.m. Okay, so I will go through quite quickly. I hope you can see my slides now.
Yeah.
On the screen. Good. Okay, so I will quickly break the next 50 minutes into 3 sections, or rather the next half an hour into 3 sections. I will first start off with a quick introduction on the agenda today, which is to highlight the difference between RPA and Semantic AI. And then also we would like to try to make a short prediction on what will be coming up next. Okay, so one of the key difference, as highlighted by Susie, the key difference between RPA is that RPA is a very good solution if you have documents that are structured. So they keep appearing at the same location, same template. It's very easily templatized. Now, sad to tell you, life is never such well organized. More often, especially with our banking customers, they get documents like that, which is in the form of a letter. So this is a proof of employment or proof of income. We typically receive from HR to the banks to say that this personnel A is employed by us. Again, this become a unstructured or what we call semi-structured document. The information are there, but they are just all over the places. So these are, from Tiger's point of view, these are our day-to-day challenge. So customers come to us because they have a lot of such information all over the shop. And to make it even more complicated, nowadays, this tends to be what we get, board resolution. So these are the more complicated document where a lot of times special people or their staff needs to be trained in order to, even a human needs to be trained to know which are the ones that they can receive, which are the ones that are not acceptable because certain clauses that they need are not in the board resol. So this is what we simplify of our experience so far. We noticed that most banks or most organizations are not able to go fully automated because they couldn't get the human-like accuracy that they want from RPA. So they want it to be accurate, and because most of the software in the market cannot read accurately, therefore there is a limitation on how efficiently that they can be scaled. So this is the whole cycle that we see repeating all the time because of the operational inefficiency. So you limit the automation, and as they scale, they actually become more and more reliable on manpower. So that is the challenge that Tiger is trying to solve. So I guess this is something very common that we have been hearing from a lot of recent news reports that giant tech players like Google, Facebook, Microsoft, IBM has been investing more and more into Semantic AI. So just exactly what is how is Semantic AI going to be helping you? So one common way is actually what I have just described, to do complex document extraction. So one case study that we did together with Banco Santander is that there is a particular document that they that they always need to process that is called power of attorney. Is very commonly used when a small, medium-sized enterprise come to them and need to start off a bank account. So that document is about 5 or 6 pages long normally, and however, it's written by lawyers. So you can imagine different lawyers will write it in different format and in different form. So for a human to go through all you for us for the bank to train all their officers to read that document is going to be very very challenging, and it has been costing them both in high labor, it's a very labor intensive job, and most importantly, it costs them a lot in customer experience point of view, because it takes 7 days because of this requirement. It takes them 7 days to start off an SME account. So our task is to actually automate that. So what we after working with us, we can now actually tell them, scan the document through, send it to our system. We will highlight to you which are the clause that you need are not present, or if they are present, they are not up to your requirement, so that your banking officer can advise the customer immediately, and they can go back and change it. So the whole customer experience has reduced from 7 days to 15 minutes. So that bring about a huge increase in savings and also efficiency. Another way that we commonly see customers making use of semantic AI is actually in search. So imagine if any of the CIO present, I think you will share the same nightmare. You will have a giant SAN storage system at the back end of your office that stores millions and millions of files. But in reality, no one knows what is in that file. So what we commonly do is that the customer will ask us, can you read through those documents and help me to do two things? A, draw a knowledge map out of it, so that I know what are the documents in there. And number two, make them available for my search, so that a new coming officer doesn't have to start everything from scratch. A lot of times what we are doing now, a lot of the work that we are doing has been done by someone else before. So if I can search those documents efficiently, you can then bring it up. So that is, and they always come up with a third requirement, that I don't want it to be computerized. Ideally, I don't need an AI person or a IT person to do the search. A layman can actually just simply type in a simple question, a very natural language question, and it will know what to search in the document. So we did just that, and in fact, for one of our particular client, we push it even further. We actually have the search result delivered to their mobile app. So this screen, as you could tell, is a WeChat. So the customer want to ask, based on the role of my officers, deliver only the relevant news to them. So you will deliver in this format that you see. So if you are an IT person, you will actually receive all your relevant news or update on cybersecurity. If you are in procurement, if you are in R&D, so that you only receive those news that are relevant to you. And that helps the team to get busy on their way traveling from home to work. And in our government use case, in Singapore, we are a big vendor to the government on search. They are more keen to discover, what do I not know about my citizen? So with the search, they actually could tell what are the new trends coming out. What are the common questions that citizens are asking me that I'm not even thinking of today? So they are more concerned on the second part, to discover what they do not know. Okay, good. The third way that you can make use of semantic AI happens to be chatbot. So I know chatbot has been around for quite a while. Now, the common challenge when we talk about chatbot is that questions like, if any of you have the experience of using Siri, you need to ask your question in a specific format that Siri can understand. So that if not, it will actually not able to come up with the result that you want. So what we did with our AI is that you can ask the question. If you notice in here, in this little example, you can ask the same question in different form, but we will understand the question and bring you to the same answer that appropriately answers your questions. So one of the case study that we have in Singapore was actually a housing development board. They actually provide housing for about 80% of the Singaporeans. They have moved beyond a chatbot. So they have done a chatbot, and they are looking at, can I integrate at least two of your functions together? I want to extract information from the citizens as they upload documents, and use that information to auto-populate the forms that I have, so that the citizens doesn't have to fill out form anymore. so that it become a whole onboarding process. Like the very day that you just talk to the chatbot that I want to buy a new flat, the chatbot will tell you, I need document A, B, C. All you have to do is upload the document and we will be able to extract the information that we need and populate onto the form. So that actually helps to simplify the whole thing. And in this COVID-19 scenario, this is one of the most ideal onboarding process. You don't have to go down to the office physically. So with that, I will hand over the floor to Kevin so that he can take over with the demo. Over to you, Kevin.
All right. Okay. So what I'm going to be showing you actually really illustrates the difference between AI and typical RPA, because RPA tends to be associated with really routine tasks that have to be taught to the system, and then the system basically repeats over and over and over again. So there's not a lot of variation that it can handle. So the few demos that I'm about to show you actually really shows you how we're able to use that really semantic technology to help to understand certain things that RPA otherwise might not be able to do, which is not to say that we're not complementary RPA, right? So where there are situations where we would be quite comfortable using RPA, that would be where they're really routine, repetitive tasks that are very, very fixed and very structured, right? So if we could repeat it nonstop for the entire day without thinking, that's something probably RPA could do very, very well. But when it comes to something that requires a bit more higher order thinking, the ability to really understand meaning, that's where the situation comes in, where you really need to understand what the meaning of what you're doing is, rather than just looking at maybe specific locations, right? So I'm not sure if everyone can see my screen.
Yeah, we can see.
Take a new credit card. Fantastic. Okay, great. So what I'm going to show you right now is basically around a scenario that we're all very familiar with, which could be around just going to a bank to apply for a credit card. So right now, I think some banks, actually a lot of banks right now would have online applications that you can fill in. So with these online applications, typically you still have this application form where you go in, type your name in and everything, and then after you click submit. And then after that, the bank would still ask you, hey, can you upload like your driver's license or your passport to prove who you are? And then after that, you have your proof of address, which comes in the form of like utility bill, or you can have a proof of employment, which comes in the form of like a salary letter, which Thomas was showing just now as well. So what we're going to do is actually reverse that process. And we're going to do this through the cost of putting in several documents. The first one is something that could potentially be read through by an RPA solution that had some sort of OCR attached to it. And that would be something like an identity card. So what you're seeing on my screen now is the representation of a Singaporean identity card, of course, mocked up with to protect whoever it actually was. And then what we did here was we taught the system how to read the identity card. And this could be a fairly simple affair, right? Because you know the name is always going to be in the same place, you know where the dates are and whatnot. But then also you have some logic rules to check to make sure that everything is correct, right? So for instance, the birth date here might be wrong because the quality of the document is just so low, right? It's just really blurry and hard to see. And the same thing goes for something like the postal code, right? Where in this case, the system actually picked up an A instead of a 4, right? Because we all know that postal codes are supposed to be 6 numbers long, right? But it doesn't matter, because right now what we can do is rely on 2 other documents. And even though like this document was fairly easy to extract from, you can see that the system actually managed to reflect where there might have been discrepancies in terms of the information being extracted. So now what we've done is we've put in 2 other documents. One is proof of employment, as well as a proof of salary, as well as a proof of address. And the proof of address looks something like this. I'm just going to shift my own picture to the side so that I can see it. And then you will see this, right? This is basically a utility bill that can come in so many different forms and shapes and sizes. So if you're always to ask like an RPA or a robot to say, look, I'm going to always put, I'm going to upload documents that always have the address at the top left-hand corner or the top right-hand corner, right? Then the moment the address appears somewhere else, it's going to fail, right? That's not the case with like proper AI that's implemented correctly, right? The idea is that we rely more on the meaning, the context of what we're looking for in order to identify where an address might be, right? Instead of just relying on a particular location, right? And that's one key difference already that you see, right? With that natural language processing ability, with that ability to understand the context and the meaning, you gain that one level of excuse me, gain that one level of intelligence that allows the system to be able to identify what an address is, right? And that's one step higher already. Now let me show you the next step that's even higher than that. And that's when you come to something as complex. Well, maybe not to you and me, but definitely to a machine, as complex as a letter like this, right? So when we write letters to each other, when we send a proof of employment letter from a company to another company, like a bank, right? What this letter is supposed to be is a letter from a human person to another human person, just like the way that I'm talking to you right now, right? And what you can see on screen is obviously something that was meant for a human to read. But here, what we've done is that we've taught the system how to read based on the natural language of the document, what all these like words and different entities, what we call entities really mean, right? So the system was able to identify the company name, right? Which is impossible if you didn't understand what the letter was supposed to be about. It's also able to identify, for instance, his years of employment based on a particular date, right? And it's able to identify that based on the context and meaning of what it sees within the document itself. And then after that, it's also able to pull out the job title. And in this case, because it's never seen this job title before, it's going to say, hey, maybe I picked it up wrongly because I've never seen this before. It doesn't match any known job titles. So what we can do from then on is actually just to go in and working together with machine, we tell the machine, look, this 8 was supposed to be an ampersand. And then after that, it gets to saw this as feedback for the future, for future use. So I've taken you through something that's very structured to something that's a bit less structured, and where the address can be in different places, and then something that actually a human is supposed to read. And that's really what AI is about, right? The ability to perform things that a human person would otherwise normally have to do, right? And although this to a human might be fairly repetitive as well, it actually does require a bit of thinking in order for you to understand what a proof of employment is actually trying to say. Yeah, and we can take this even one step further. So like you've seen as something maybe you could train a fresh graduate to do, right? On a day-to-day basis. Now, what if I told you that we had something that only a lawyer could do? I'm gonna have to log in again because of our really, really strict timelines. Okay, so it's something that a lawyer could do, basically to read a board resolution. And I'm gonna show you an instance of something that we actually printed out and then we crumpled up and then we scanned it back in again, just to demonstrate. Oops, this is not the document itself. Okay, 1 second, just need to sign into the right role.
Sharing some secret documents online.
Yeah. There we go. Okay, so this is an example of where we actually printed out a board resolution, like a sample board resolution, and then we crumpled it up, we scribbled all over it, and then we scanned it in again, just to try out like how good our recognition capability was. So one common question that we get is, can you deal with paper documents when they're scanned in? And the answer is yes, definitely. This is clearly a scanned in paper document. What we do first is we pass it through the machine identifies the text on it. This is called part of optical character recognition. And this allows for the system to be able to convert an image from just a plain image to be able to extract the text from it as well. And then beyond that, the text itself, what we do with it is we pass it through some natural language processing algorithms, right? And in this way, it's able to immediately identify, look, here's the company name, here's the date of validity of the document. And you can imagine that these board resolutions are fairly complex documents, right? A lot of the times we look at this, I want to fall asleep already because there's just a bunch of text in there that I don't necessarily, isn't like particularly important to me. I don't necessarily understand, right? So what's really important to us and to the bank in this case was to be able to find out all these like minute details. Which country was it issued in? How long is it valid until, or when did it start being valid? What company does it belong to? And what's really interesting from then on is also the ability for us to identify the people who are attached here, right? So the people who belong in different groups, they could be like directors, they could belong in like different groups as well, right? So we're able to pick out like 4 different names in this case, and we're also able to attach the powers associated to them, right? And that's really the ability of the system, ability to really read through the entire document, identify the ability to and identify which clauses give them certain powers on behalf of this company, right? So for instance, if they go to the bank, they're able to sign and open a bank account. The system knows because it's read through this document, it's understood what the board resolution is talking about. And this doesn't mean that like the system actually based it on a particular location, because obviously, as you know, and I know, this will completely fail, right? So what is really important to the system is really the meaning and the context. And you can see it from different documents as well. So if you were paying close attention to the previous format of the document, we actually uploaded different formats into the same model, and the same model can actually pick up from different like variants of this kind of document, even though it's all appearing in wonderful free flow text. And that's the really fascinating thing about this, the ability of the natural language processing algorithms to understand what the document is trying to say. And then after that, pick up the relevant data points almost magically and almost very, very quickly as well. In fact, I think this document would take less than 20 seconds for the system to read through, right? And it doesn't matter how you want to phrase it in different ways, right? So this is, again, another nice example of a way that we're taking it much more and much further than a typical RPA kind of solution that you would expect, right? When it comes to AI, the natural language processing ability is really important. The ability to understand the meaning and context is really important as well. And we apply this across everything, right? So where you would think that a chatbot would be a really routine kind of solution, it really isn't, because people can ask questions in so many different ways. And it really requires the kind of natural human intelligence to try and bring across what your customers are looking for. So chatbots typically, they exist in like a B2C kind of realm, right? So where the consumer is coming in to ask questions or find out things that they're very, very keen to know. So sometimes, of course, a chatbot might not have the answer to everything, right? So in this case, I could ask a question like, well, I don't have anything that comes to mind right now, but basically the system itself can actually answer according to different topics, right? And you can just press like and click through like different questions and answers, and they'll try to respond accordingly. But in case a user did ask something that the system doesn't know, basically what it would do is give you a response like, sorry, I have no idea, right? I can't answer your question. And then of course you have fallbacks. So if I keep just typing in gibberish, it tries to suggest like different answers to me. If not, there's like the ultimate fallback, which is go talk to a human, right? Which is all right, because you've already filtered out the 80% of questions that the humans are really tired of answering. Additionally, you could have a situation where the chatbot can interact with you as well. So if I were to ask a question like in really short form, like what is SP? And then after that, I can continue the conversation. So what's fascinating is that we built in the intelligence into the chatbot as well, such that it's able to answer questions along a particular line of conversation. So it's already understood the context of what you're talking about, this conversation, just like how I'm talking to you right now. And then it's able to answer questions accordingly. So you can even follow down the conversation as well. You can even talk about like where you stay, for instance, in a particular block. You can choose a particular street as well. And then you can tell the system what kind of vehicle you're driving. And sometimes this doesn't work because it really might be the case that the particular location doesn't exist. So let's see. Yeah. So in this case, the particular location doesn't exist. But usually what will happen is that we actually pull out like data from another external web service, which would respond with the season parking charges of that location. So this shows the interaction, right? Where typically you would have maybe really fixed and canned responses. Here, you can actually have the chatbot interact with the user directly and then gather information, and then after that, continue to respond from there. And like I mentioned, like there are going to be cases where the system, like the chatbot itself, doesn't really understand what you're talking about. So we can then handle these phrases and these questions in a really intelligent manner. And that's where we've combined multiple aspects of artificial intelligence in order to do this. So here I've got a bunch of examples of questions that are just like all over the place, right? I could ask like a whole bunch of different questions. And sometimes when you're administering a chatbot, they could come into, they could just ask you like 1,000 different questions. And then when you need to maintain a chatbot, it becomes really, really painful. And I think maybe any of you that have maintained a chatbot before in your lives, you will probably relate to this as well. So what we've done here is we've made it really easy for you to do that, right? And it's all to do with this magical button called group similar phrases. So we've devised a way to basically identify and group together different questions that the users are asking into distinct groups based on the meanings of what they're asking. Right, so as long as they are semantically similar, in this case, what it means that the meanings are similar, right? The questions are actually be grouped together into a particular group, and then you can choose to answer all of them at the same time. So for instance, in this case, where I asked like a bunch of similar questions, like how to become a champion, how am I a better person, how to become a winner. So you could like click on 3 of them at once, and then you can just hit the button resolve all, and then you can add it into a particular question that you really want to answer. So this is like some of the examples of the ways that we combine different techniques of artificial intelligence to really set us apart from where you would see typical RPA coming in, right? And combining those different features really lets you harness the kind of efficiency that you would expect from artificial intelligence instead of perpetually having to do the same thing over and over again, or like get stuck where a robot is just unable to proceed because they've reached some sort of dead end. Yeah. So I just wanted to give all of you like a glimpse as to like what kinds of technologies we're looking at as well, and how this really makes things quite different from a typical like RPA or like very rules-based kind of approach to artificial intelligence. Yeah. So that's pretty much like what I wanted to show you with regard to the demos. And I think maybe Susie, now might be a good time to open up all the questions.
Yeah, talking about questions you were talking about. We have Yasser. Hi, Yasser. Welcome, and thank you for joining us today. He's got a question out for you guys. He's saying, how does your RPA solution differ from document capture solutions?
Sure, okay. I can answer that actually. Oh, Thomas, would you like to start?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah, so typically with document capture solutions, what I think we demonstrated with the credit card example was that with document capture solutions, you tend to be very focused on, there are two very traditional ways of doing document capture. The first one is where you base it completely on the layout. So like I mentioned, if it's always on the top left-hand corner or the bottom right-hand corner, that's easy for a document capture solution to try and pick up, because then after that, you just take from one particular place all the time, and then you just another way that you could do it is through keywords, right? So you always look out for a certain keyword that might be located in a document, and then you always pick it up, whatever's around that keyword, right? So that might make sense as well. But as we've shown in the case of the board resolutions, or as you've shown in the case of the employment letter, these can be really unstructured data that once again you would require a human person to read, right? Otherwise, if not for AI, you would require a human person to read and understand what the document is about, right? So that's really where we differ, because that natural language processing ability really comes in, right, in order to read the entire document itself. And it's not even document analysis anymore. It's more like cognitive analysis, like really reading through, understanding what the document is about, what that particular legal clause is about, thinking almost like a lawyer, and then after that, pulling out the information according to what it finds there. Yeah.
Thank you, Franz. I hope that answered your question. And we have also Annette Paul. She's actually asked a couple of questions, but this one would also like to tie into the Middle East. She's saying, where do you see the future of AI in finance in Singapore or Hong Kong? She wants to get your viewpoint on that.
Okay, that is a challenging one. Shall I go first, Kevin?
Yeah,
okay.
please. So I have my own thoughts as well, for sure.
Yeah. So I would say that the future of AI in finance in Singapore is moving towards helping human rather than replacing human. I would say a lot of the employees that happen into the banking sectors are worried that when they see us as a vendor going into their office, they find that AI is there to replace them. Actually, I would say that no, it's actually to hopefully make sure that they can go back home on time, so that they do not have to invest the extra hours of OT, and also to produce higher value jobs. We have a client that has been repetitively doing the same job over and over again, day by day, but you could tell over time he or she will be replaced by a machine. So why not do it now? Move part of his job to a machine so that he or she may be able to focus on things that are more value adding. We see this most common, currently most active in the insurance sector of banks. So the analysis of the for example, the insurance policy is handed to a machine, and the human will actually interpret this analysis to their customers' context. That is where the actual value adding is. So we are seeing more and more of it moving towards that route. And
yeah,
Kevin?
actually, yeah, absolutely. Actually, I completely agree with Thomas. Like, I think a lot of the cases that we're seeing in Singapore as well as Hong Kong are actually fairly similar, because the two countries, in terms of where they are in the financial world, they are fairly similar as well. right? A lot of the regional headquarters of a lot of the biggest financial institutions in the world sit in both of these countries. So it makes sense that the use cases they're looking at also are going to be somewhat the same, right? And as Thomas mentioned, they're all targeted at replacing the really, really boring kinds of tasks, right? It's already happening. Like you already see, like, for instance, when it comes to your onboarding, right? Those are some of the pain points that typically you want to shorten as much as possible because you want to be able to get your customers using your systems as fast as possible, right? And it makes sense for the banks to want to automate this to make sure that they reduce the time taken from the moment that a customer hops onto the system and wants to onboard to the point where they can actually start doing stuff with their bank account or with their trading platform, right? So these are some of the cases where the moment you require too much time between where your customer comes in and then to the action where they can start doing something, that's usually where we see these like a lot of the automation solutions popping in. But it's also with regard to customer service and it's with regard to the customer experience as well. So like with chatbots, for instance, they really do help to improve the customer service if they're intelligent enough. And that's the big caveat, is that if they're intelligent enough. If you always get a chatbot that says, I don't know, I don't have the answer to your question, that becomes very frustrating because then I might as well just look at your FAQs, right? You want a chatbot that can really guide you through the process, perform transactions with you, and maybe even help you change your password if you forgot, right? Otherwise, you have to call up like somebody on the customer service officer's end. Yeah, so these are some of the cases that we've seen in the past and we continue to see as well as the world moves to much more of an AI-driven kind of experience.
That's good, thank you. Well, we have talking about cases. You've got a lot of questions here about the Middle East and basic some case studies of what you guys have done in the Middle East. There you have questions asking if the system can read Arabic, how and about Arabic documents, as it's important for this Middle East. So if you could just share us a little bit about you know, what you've done in this case.
Sure.
Okay. Please go ahead, Kevin. Sorry.
Whoever.
Yeah, no worries. So actually, the good news is that we've already started developing and currently testing the Arabic language. So we do have a colleague in the Middle East. His name is Helmi, and he's actually in charge of like taking care of like the business cases relating to the Middle East. And of course, after this webinar, he'd be very happy to talk to you as well with regard to any of the business cases that you might have in mind. So yes, we already are testing the Arabic language. What we do need is in some cases, there might be unique business cases, right? So the Arabic language really needs to be put through some of these business cases, these documents, or anything that you might want to stress test it with. And then we need to understand what your requirements are. So there's definitely always a bit of tweaking in terms of what you need to do with Arabic and with the system's ability to understand it. So yeah, there is that process that we definitely need to go through before we would like say that it's definitely it's like fully ready for you. In terms of Arabic user interface, we are working on that as well. But we're expecting it to be ready maybe by the middle of next quarter.
Yeah, that's great. There's a lot of question about reading handwritten text and documents. Mohammed. Mohammed's asking, what about handwritten text and documents?
Okay, we have done that with some documents, mainly the forms where it's handwritten and filled in. So those we were able to handle, but not with our normal guarantee of accuracy. So for most of our projects, we actually guarantee a normal accuracy of 80%. But for handwritten, we don't offer that accuracy guarantee. Yeah, a lot depends on how neatly the person is able to write within the box.
That's right. Just to add on to that as well, I think that we need to differentiate between what hand-printed, handwritten, and typewritten is. Yeah, so when it comes to typewritten documents, right, the machine-printed documents, those are easy to read by the optical character recognition systems. When it comes to handwritten documents, where you can write in cursive, that is almost impossible to read so far, right? Even the state-of-the-art technology is going to have a hard time reading it unless you fed it like tens and thousands of your own handwriting, because everybody's handwriting is different. My A can look like your O, my E can look like someone else's P for some reason. Okay, that's just weird. But anyway, yeah, so the handwritten part of it is just very, very difficult for any kind of technology to do. So safe to say anyone who's reading or writing calligraphy, his job is safe for now. But when it comes to hand-printed text, and by hand-printed, what we mean is if you were to write in block letters within like a form, and your handwriting is neat enough, we've actually found quite a bit of success in applying what we call, I think it's intelligent character recognition, ICR. Can't remember what the I stands for, to the text itself, and then we're able to pick that up with a high degree of accuracy. Yeah. So where you have forms, where you have like hand printed type like block letter documents, yeah, we can still pick up that information.
Okay, great. Well, I've got a question as well. I mean, if I'm a company, a lot of our viewers out there are in private companies, and a question that many of them may want to have answered is, you know, how do you prepare to integrate AI into your company? Like, if it's something that you want to do, like, how would you go about that? Kevin,
okay.
or I know you guys.
Okay, so I assume that this is asking is that you have a new company and you want to incorporate AI into your company. How do you even start that? So the first step that we always advise customers to do is define your end goal. What do you want to achieve with AI? Do you want to shorten your whole customer experience, or so that it's more targeted? Or B, you are looking at time saving, so that you actually save time internally when you're processing those documents. That big objective is one of the first things you have to establish. Because now, once you can establish that, then you look at the amount of documents or information that you currently hold. So we have so let's pick the typical case of housing development board. One of the objective was that they want to serve the citizen better, and the common complaint is that to get one thing done, because it's a government department, I think it functions the same way like most government departments. You have to make 6 to 7 phone calls just to gather the information together. So what they do is that they actually says, can you do me a favor? Can you read the database of these 6 to 7 departments and gather them onto the same CRM, so that my CRM officer that pick up the phone can actually have a one united interface that have the citizen's whole life story. I do not need the citizen to call 6 or 7 departments anymore. So that was actually how they define their objective, and then they move backwards to come out. This is my implementation plan. So that I would say is the first step. Define where is your angle.
Well, thank you for that. We've got Dipankar Mittal is asking, Dipankar, can Tiger be used by a bank as a platform which they can use internally by their own teams to develop products, or do the banks need to depend on Tiger to develop new products? That's from
Very
Dipankar.
good. Kevin, your forte.
Yeah. So the fascinating thing is that for the longest time, the answer was actually we will still need to come in to help to fine tune the AI models, right? However, actually, we heard this question for so many times over the course of the last few years that we actually decided to do something about it. So we are quite happy to announce that we actually do have a solution for this currently in beta testing that allows. So we got so good at basically teaching systems how to read documents that we decided to teach systems how to teach systems how to read documents, right? So now we
teach the human.
Well, we decided to create a system that could be taught by humans that aren't our engineers how to read documents. That basically is it. Yeah. So we're currently beta testing the system. You can stay tuned for how the system will work. But it's really fascinating. It's really groundbreaking as well, and it really feels like a combination of everything that we've been working on at Tiger, because you've combined all these different techniques together to allow you, the end user, the business user, to actually go through your documents, label them, and then after that, have the system automatically process them and figure out how to extract. Right, so you can actually maintain and improve the accuracy of like information extraction in some cases, or even like the accuracy of your chatbot in the future through this system. Yeah, we're really excited about it.
Great, thanks. Okay, so another question, for a couple of questions actually there. These are a few people asking the same thing. How do you ensure cybersecurity? And that's, I think that's a question that there's 3 of those. So that's quite interesting to know. How do you ensure this?
Okay, I would say the easy way one. So most of the banks that we work with would require us to host on-premise. So in fact, they handle the whole security. So no cloud. Everything must happen within their data center. So this is the most common engagement that we work with most banks. Or even if they use cloud, it's normally a private cloud. So that actually helps them to feel safe most of the time. Now we do have customers that are for example, a credit card onboarding process. Because of the amount of users, they would prefer to use a public cloud. Now those are the ones that they will make it very clear that Tiger, I do not want you to store any data. I will pass the document to you, you extract, you return the information to me, so your system will stay blank all the time. So those are some of the engagement that we do with the customer to help them to comply to their PDP, their private data policy.
Okay, great. I think we have that's quite a few questions there when I was just looking at pretty much the same. So you answered that for them. That's great. Well, we are actually very happy. We had a great time. We really enjoyed talking with you today. And
thank you.
the audience, I hope we answered most of your questions. And thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Thomas, for your time. Thank you, everyone, as well, for joining us. Again, if you need to email us or get in contact with Tiger, you can get in touch with us at info@bahrainfintechbay.com. And we hope you guys stay safe out there during these times. And everyone, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Susie.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Susie. Bye-bye.